What is up, awesome people of the internet? Got some breaking news to share with you all. The Minnesota Lynx has hired some assistant coaches. Now they include the recently fired from the Washington Mystics, Eric Tebow, who is going to be a associate head coach for the Minnesota Lynx, and they have brought back Lindsay Whalen, the Minnesota Lynx great, and she will serve as an assistant coach. Now, a press release was just put out earlier today. We're going to go through it, and we're going to talk about these people if you don't know who they are. Now, the reason for the associate head coach hiring is because Katie Smith did leave the Minnesota Lynx. She was the associate head coach for the Lynx, and she ended up taking an assistant coach job with the Ohio State women's basketball team. And so they had an opening. They also just had another opening role for one of their other assistant coaches. And so that is why they're making these two hires. Now, let's go to the press release. So it says, Minnesota head coach and president of basketball operations, Cheryl Reeve, announced today the hiring of Eric Tebow as associate head coach and former Lynx great Lindsay Whalen as assistant coach. Per team policies, terms of the deals were not released. That's one thing that I wish eventually we would know more about some of these deals, because we know a lot about NBA deals, but barely any, because they don't release anything, and we don't really have insiders in the WNBA that can actually release that information, at least not a lot of them. It says, I am grateful to add both Eric and Lindsay to our coaching staff. Reeve said, Eric has vast experience coaching in the WNBA as both a head coach and an assistant coach, and is a WNBA champion. Lindsay adds a unique perspective as a Lynx legend and Naismith Hall of Famer. I look forward to working with both in our quest for another championship. And Eric Tebow said, I am thrilled to be joining Cheryl's staff and to be part of the Minnesota Lynx organization. The players and staff have built an incredible winning culture, and I'm excited to do my part as we pursue a WNBA championship. Now, in terms of Eric Tebow, it says that prior to him joining the Lynx, he was the head coach of the Washington Mystics. Guys, remember, he was the associate head coach for a hot second, and became the head coach. And his dad was the GM for the Washington Mystics. They both just got fired like a month or so ago, so that's what's happening. So it says he was the head coach for 2 seasons for the 2023 and 2024 season. But prior to being named the head coach, he spent 10 seasons as an assistant for the Mystics for his dad, being elevated to associate head coach in 2019. Throughout his tenure, Tebow helped the Mystics to 9 postseason appearances, including 2 as head coach. He was instrumental in the franchise's back-to-back WNBA Finals appearances in 2018 and 2019, resulting in Washington's first WNBA championship in 2019. Now, Eric, actually, hold on. Let me talk about Eric Tebow real quick, a little bit more. A thing to note is that we saw Cheryl Reeve do the same thing with Katie Smith, making her the associate head coach. So if y'all don't remember, let's rewind. Katie Smith was the head coach. She was a head coach for the New York Liberty, and she had an abysmal record. Like it was really bad. she was the head coach for the Liberty from in 2018 and 2019 seasons. Had a combined record of 17 wins and 51 losses. She eventually did get cut. She did get fired because they were terrible. Like this was back. This was before the revamp of the New York Liberty. This is the old Liberty. They were trash, absolutely trash. So she got fired from her head coaching role, and immediately after she got fired, we ended up seeing her get hired as the associate head coach for the Minnesota Lynx, and she's been there ever since. Eventually leaving, a couple months ago, announcing that she was leaving and going to Ohio State to be an assistant coach there. Now, it seems that Cheryl Reeve is doing the same thing. She's taken someone who just got fired as a head coach, bringing them on as the associate head coach because they have a lot of experience, right? you've been a head coach. Yeah, you weren't successful as a head coach, but there's a lot of stuff that you can offer your team, right? So yeah, you weren't successful in terms of wins and losses, but like there's specific stuff that coaches have to pay attention to. And if you have someone who has that experience to be your associate head coach, it does make your job a little bit easier. And so I think it's just a smart move for Cheryl Reeve to do that, to pick someone who was just recently a head coach to become your associate head coach, to kind of help that winning culture continue for the Minnesota Lynx. It's a smart move, and it seems like Cheryl Reeve is the one that's consistently doing that in the WNBA, where she's taken a previous head coach, making them an associate head coach. Now, Lindsay Whalen said, "I am so excited to be back with the Lynx and back with Coach and Becky, which is Rebecca Brunson." Minnesota, they do love their legends. They do love their legends, and you see them at games a lot. A whole lot. The players who have their names in the rafters, you see them a lot. Sylvia Fowles is just about always there. Rebecca Brunson works there now. They bring in Lindsay Whalen back. Now, all we need is a job for Maya Moore. That's what we need. We need Maya Moore to have some sort of official position with the Minnesota Lynx. And then it will all be complete. It will all be complete. With the exception of Simone Augustus, but she rocking and rolling at LSU, though. She rocking and rolling with them. Anyway, Lindsay said, "Eric and I have known each other for a long time, and for me, I couldn't imagine joining a better staff as I return to coaching and get my first opportunity to coach in the WNBA. We have a special group with this team, and I can't wait to get to work." Now it says Lindsay Whalen returns to the Lynx to begin her WNBA coaching career as an assistant. The Hutchinson, Minnesota native previously spent 5 seasons at her alma mater, serving as the head coach of the University of Minnesota women's basketball program. Lindsay Whalen was inducted in the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame in 2022 and the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame in 2023, following her illustrious 17-year career in the WNBA with Connecticut, which I always forget that Lindsay Whalen started her career with Connecticut. I always forget that. Connecticut and Minnesota. Minnesota officially retired Whalen's number 13 jersey in 2019, following her retirement from the W in 2018. And it just goes over Lindsay Whalen's stats when she was a player for the Minnesota Lynx. I want to talk about this real quick. So it briefly mentioned that Lindsay Whalen was the head coach for the University of Minnesota women's basketball program. And yes, she was the head coach initially. She is no longer the head coach. She was the head coach from 2018 through 2023. Minnesota wasn't very good. They made it to to a couple of tournaments. Well, really, they weren't good. The Minnesota Gophers were not good at all. I think originally it was like, okay, Lindsay Whalen was a fantastic player for us. She played for a fantastic coach in Cheryl Reeve. Let's bring her to be our head coach, even though she didn't have any coaching experience. She went straight from playing in the WNBA to being hired as the head coach for the University of Minnesota, and it didn't work out. Okay, it did not work out at all. She wasn't very successful. Ultimately, she had a record of 71 wins and 76 losses in total, and she wound up getting fired in 2023 after Minnesota lost in the first round of the Big Ten tournament. So after that, in 2023, she was let go from her role, mainly because they hired her to try to get Minnesota to win some games, and they couldn't. They just were not a very good team. I also think it's primarily because you just took her straight from being a player to a head coach. Like, there was no... I think it would have been better served if she was an assistant coach for a bit and then eventually transition her to head coach. But I think in reality, I don't think she was really prepared at all to be a head coach. And that's understandable. That's understandable. Like I think it's difficult to go straight from a player to head coach. Like, it's very, very difficult. Some people can do it, but I really do think that uh, it is now a good decision for her to become a assistant coach for the Minnesota Lynx, because again, you're under the coach that you learned a lot from, and one of the greatest coaches to ever coach in the WNBA. And Cheryl Reeve can really teach Lindsay Whalen, like, hey, here's what you need to know. Like, here's coaching 101, basically. And I'm sure Reeve was trying to help Lindsay Whalen out while she was the head coach of the Gophers, but like still, it's I think this is a better situation for Lindsay Whalen, and she's gonna work her way up from there. She's eventually gonna try to go back to being a head coach. I'm sure she's gonna go back to being a head coach eventually. But for right now, yeah, she needs to sit under someone, learn a lot, and move her way up from there. So yeah, that's the news, guys. I wanted to give you all this information, wanted to share this with you all, but also give you all some backstory context for those who aren't aware of Lindsay Whalen, who aren't aware of Eric Thibault. Wanted to just give y'all some tidbits about that, because the press release is meant to make it seem all rosy and like happy go lucky and blah blah blah, and it's great that them two have been hired, but there's some backstory that the press release will never tell you, because it's not good, right? Eric Thibault got fired from the Washington Mystics. Lindsay Whalen was fired from the University of Minnesota. And they both have made the best decision for their careers. And I really do think that, yeah, both are definitely on the path to becoming a head coach in the WNBA or in college basketball. For Eric, it'd be again, and for Lindsay, it'd be the first time if she ends up getting a head coaching role in the W. Because Lindsay, Cheryl Reeve is a fantastic coach. Fantastic. She's one of those greats where when you leave Cheryl Reeve, you know a whole lot, right? And so I think she's really gonna be able to work with these two to get them back to getting a head coaching role. So I think it's awesome. So shout out to Lindsay Whalen, shout out to Eric Thibault, shout out to the Minnesota Lynx. Cheryl Reeve be doing her thing. She is not just the head coach; she is the president of basketball operations. So she be rocking and rolling, right? So yeah, that's the story. Let me know what y'all think in the comments below. And until next time, guys, bye-bye.